This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're well into the Shloshim Yom Kodim HaChag, and in all the yeshivas already, the kids, they're preparing their booklets and their pamphlets and their Divrei Torah and everything for the Yom Tif, and they come to the Seder with, all kinds of Divrei Torah, so the parents have to, be better prepared even than the children, right? So it's time to start preparing the Haggadah. I don't think there's any sefer in Yahadus and Judaism that has more perushim than the Haggadah itself. Even though talking about perushim, this week's Parsha Vayikra, the first word Vayikra has a small aleph. The Megala Amukos only has 1,000 perushim for why the word Vayikra has a small aleph. So, talking about perushim. Okay, so what?
The Rambam is more Perushim, I
think. Okay. Okay.
He said it was the last. You don't need any Perushim. He said he himself said doesn't need any more.
Exactly.
But
So one of the aspects of the Seder, there's something that is conspicuously absent. That is when we come to Yom Tovim that commemorate miracles, we always make a bracha Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu B'Yom Ha'im Hazman Hazeh. Chanukah, Purim, we make the bracha Sha'asa Nisim. And one would expect that the night of Pesach, we're commemorating the miracles of Mitzrayim. We would expect to make the bracha Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu. And we don't. And the Torah writes, in number 1, U'moizgin loy kois rishon, says you pour the first cup, U'mekadesh alav, you make Kiddush, U'mevarech tchila by Peragafen, you make the bar Peragafen, Ve'achar kach Kiddush hayoim, then you make Kiddush v'shachianu. What about the obvious bracha? Right? What goes right before Shechianu Sha'asa Nisim? Ve'eino mevarach Sha'asa Nisim. Why not? Lefi Sha'asa la'imroi b'Haggadah. Because you're going to say it eventually. When? The Torah says, no, don't worry about Sha'asa Nisim because you're eventually going to say it. Now, presumably, what the Torah is referring to is that after the second kais, by the second kais of wine, what do we do with the second kais? We make a bracha, Asher Ga'alanu, Hashem you redeemed us, V'Ga'al Esaveseinu, right? Ha'itzianu me'av desacheres, me'afela la'ira, me'shiba l'gula, right? V'narmel, okay, we say a bracha. So presumably that bracha, what are we thanking Hashem for in that bracha? We're thanking Hashem for taking us out of Mitzrayim and for making these miracles. So, included in the bracha of Asher Ga'alanu is that Hashem performed miracles for us, Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu, and therefore we don't have to make the bracha Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu because we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. I mean, when it comes to Chanukah, do we say, well, let's postpone the bracha until Maariv because we're going to say we're going to say Ala Nisim, right? We're going to say Bimei Matisyav Ben Yechon Kohen Gadol. Do we say on Purim, you don't have to say Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu on the Haggadah because you're going to get to it. No. We do it right away. As soon as we do the mitzvah, even before the mitzvah, right? We say Over L'Asiyasam, we make the bracha Sha'asa Nisim La'Avayseinu. So why, when it comes to the night of Pesach, do we say, Sha'asa Nisim? Don't worry, put it on hold, postpone it. We'll wait till we get to it in the bracha of Asher Ga'alanu. Okay. That's question number 1. Why do we postpone Sha'asa Nisim until the bracha of Asher Ga'alanu? Okay. The night of Pesach, we have many mitzvahs. In fact, there's a tradition from the Gra, actually, passed down from generation to generation. How many mitzvahs do we have, Leil Seder? If you add up, all the Dairaisas and all the Rabbanans and all the Minhagim, Samach Daled mitzvahs, 64 mitzvahs. Okay, 64 mitzvahs. But, how many mitzvahs Dairaisa are there? So Avudraham says, Ba'avur Zeh, you have 12 mitzvahs. Okay? If you count the Dairaisas and the Mamish, the Takanah Rabbanans. But, of all the mitzvahs, which are Dairaisa? You have Matzah and Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Right? Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Okay, now, whenever we do a mitzvah, what do we do first? We make a bracha. Why is there no bracha on the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? Right? All the Rishonim ask, why is there no bracha on the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? So this question is already raised by the Rishonim, and we're going to see the Perush of the Shibolei Haleket. Okay, the Shibboleth Halakha gives two answers. We're going to focus on the second answer. The first answer, lots of luck figuring out what he means. It needs a shiur all by itself. Take a look at number 3. Mitzvahs Haggadah hi mitzvahs aseh. The mitzvah of Haggadah, Sipur Yitzis Mitzrayim, is a mitzvah aseh d'oraisa, like the pasuk says, v'higadata about labincha b'yemahu, right? V'haisa te'una bracha. Really, it should need a bracha. Ela shenifteres b'kriya shema. You pater yourself by saying Shema. Presumably that means that at the end of Shema, by saying Mantisku, right? Mantisku, Ani Hashem Lekech Asher Hotzeitzei Escha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, right? By saying that final pasuk of Kriya Shema, you're remembering that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, so you're Mekayim the mitzvah of Haggadah with that pasuk. So, since you're Mekayim the mitzvah Haggadah with Shema, and Shema has a bracha already, right? It has a bracha lefanea, it has a bracha la'achrea. B'arei kriya Shema tu'una bracha lefanea la'achrea. Okay. U'mitay chibasa ramzu aleha elu arba brachos. Ve'enon tunan haskara u'malchus. Okay, whatever that means. Says the Shibboleth Halakha another answer. Okay, this is the answer we're going to focus on. Again, why is there no bracha on the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzis Mitzrayim? Oh, yesh laimar. Or you could say, Masha'imrim b'saif, that which we say at the end of the Haggadah, Baruch Asher Ga'alanu, right? At the end of the Haggadah. The end, by the second kais, we make the bracha Asher Ga'alanu. He brachas Haggadah, that's the bracha on the Haggadah. Sha'arei ish b'haskaras matzah, u'marar, u'pesach. In the bracha Asher Ga'alanu, we mention the mitzvah of matzah, we mention the mitzvah of marar, we mention the mitzvah of Pesach. So that bracha Asher Ga'alanu is the bracha on the Haggadah. Okay? The problem is what? Well, since when do we make a bracha on a mitzvah after we do the mitzvah, right? You make the bracha and then you put on the tefillin. You make the bracha, then you put on the talis, right? You make the bracha and then you lay in the Megillah. You make the bracha and then you light the menorah. You always make the bracha before. When do we ever make a bracha after? Right? In fact, you may not even be allowed to make a bracha afterwards. If you're not still being oisek in the mitzvah, you can't make the bracha anymore. But there's a cloud kol habrachos mevarach over lasiyasan. So what's the Shibboleth Halakha saying? Right? The Shibboleth Halakha had a question. Why don't we make a bracha on the Haggadah? The Haggadah is a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa. So what's the answer? Asher Ga'alanu. Asher Ga'alanu is when the mitzvah is over already. Okay. This is the kasha of the Chassam Sofer. Chassam Sofer in the Drashas asks this question. Take a look at number 4. Chelek Beis, page Reish Samaches. Machon Maggid Harakiah. The Rishonim ask, Lama loitiknu bracha shetzivanu l'saper b'tzias Mitzrayim. Right? Why is there no bracha on the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzis Mitzrayim? V'yesh mitartzin. There are those who would like to answer. By the way, not just the Shibboleth Halakha, Rav Hai Gaon also gives this answer. Shenichlal b'birchas Asher Ga'alanu. Okay, so we have two questions. By the way, question number 1 is raised by Rabbi Warman in his Sefer Oros HaPesach. You see number 2. If the reason why we don't make Shas Anisim is because Asher Ga'alanu covers Shas Anisim, we should make the Asher Ga'alanu in the beginning of the Seder. And regarding why we don't make a bracha on Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, so the Shibboleth Halakha said, we do Asher Ga'alanu. And the Chassam Sofer wants to know, what are we waiting till the end? We should make the bracha in the beginning. Okay?
Oh, he's asking both, or he's asking just something?
Chassam Sofer is not discussing the bracha of Shas Anisim. He's discussing the bracha of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Okay.
Rabbi Warman.
Rabbi Warman, he used to be the Rosh Yeshiva of Hank. He's a Talmud Muvak of Rabbi Blazer Silver. He's a very big mechaber. He wrote many svarim. He wrote 7 volumes on Shas. It's called I don't remember. And then on the Yom Tovim he has Oros Yimei HaPesach, Oros Yimei HaRachamim, Oros HaShabbos, and so forth. And on Shas, he has 7 volumes. He has on Sukkos, Oros Yimei HaSukkos. He's a very big mechaber. He's a Talmud of Rabbi Blazer Silver. Okay.
What is the name of it?
Yeah, he lives on the block of Chofetz Chaim.
You live here now?
Yeah. What's the name of it on Shas? I remember. It'll come to me. Okay. Then we move on in the Haggadah. We have a Maisa, right? Maisa with who? Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rav Tarfon, right? With the 5 Chachamim. Ram Gamliel. What were they doing? Shahi Mesubin with Bnei Brak. V'hayu Mesaprim B'Yitzias Mitzrayim. Kol al Aisei Alayla Ad Shabot Talmidem V'Amru Lahem Rabbi Seinu Higia Zaman Kriya Shema Shel Shachris. Basically, you had these 5 Chachamim. The 5 Gedolei Hadar were sitting at the Seder. You know, if only we had a ticket to that Seder. If only, you know, the Chidah says, you know, why weren't the Talmidim at the Seder? You know, they came in the morning. Because, you know, when these 5 Tanaim get together, what they're talking about, they're not going to let the Talmidim listen to. You know, they're talking about the Soidos HaTorah. The Talmidim weren't invited to that Seder. Right? Soidos HaTorah on Yom Tov, right? Einig Yom Tov, right? So, that's what the Chidah says. Anyway, one of the Chachamim there was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And here's the following question. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is of the opinion, until when could you offer the Karban Pesach? We know it's a Machlokes Tanaim. Can you bring the Karban Pesach until Chatzos or Kol Halayla? The Chachamim say Kol Halayla. You can eat Achilas Karban Pesach. Achilas Karban Pesach. Chachamim say Kol Halayla. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says Ad Chatzos. Okay. If you could eat the Karban Pesach till Chatzos, then you could be Mekayeh Matzah until Chatzos. Because Matzah is Hukash l'Karban Pesach. Right? Because the Karban Pesach has to be Al Matzah Simrayim Yechluhu. If you could eat the Matzah till Chatzos, then until when can you be Mekayeh the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? Chatzos. So could somebody tell me, why was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah wasting his time and talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kol Oisei Halayla? Imagine you go into the Beis Medrash, in the middle of Seder, right? The Mashgiach goes over to the guys, what are you schmoozing around? No, we're not schmoozing around. We're talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim. Mashgiach says, enough schmoozing around, open up the Gemara and learn, right? Enough wasting your time. So what was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah doing? Talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim the whole night. It's a Bittul Torah. It's a waste of time. I understand he's talking about until Chatzos. That's a mitzvah sasei d'oraisa. The mitzvah of talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim is until Chatzos. Because Karban Pesach is until Chatzos, then Matzah is until Chatzos. And we know you could only fulfill the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim when you could be Mekayim the mitzvah of Matzah. Why? Because it says that the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim has to be Ba'avur Zeh B'Shah Shematzah Umara Munachim Lefanecha. So if that is the case, why was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah wasting his time talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim the whole night? Bittul Torah. Right? Imagine you have a guy on 3 days after Sukkot. Right? Instead of learning the Beis Medrash, he's shaking his lulav. Now I'm doing a very important thing. I'm shaking my lulav. Well, excuse me, Sukkot is over. Right? Sukkot is over. Imagine you have a guy, on Shavuot, 10 days after Shavuot, he's still eating cheesecake. I mean, right? What?
He's learning all
and he wasn't, he didn't eat the matzah by himself. He was just talking. I mean, how long does it take to eat the Karban Pesach? I mean, he was talking.
Why was he talking after Chatzos? Once Chatzos is up, there's no more mitzvah to talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim. Okay, now, Harei Meshubach, as long as you're fulfilling the mitzvah, according to him, that extends until Chatzos. Right? Does Kol Amar B'Harei Meshubach continue until Shavuos? Kol Hamar B'Harei Meshubach is only what? Right, at the time you can fulfill the mitzvah. Once the time of the mitzvah is over, it's not Harei Meshubach anymore. And the Abarbanel goes so far as to ask that actually, look at number 6. He said, look, there's a mitzvah on Yom Tov of V'samachta b'chagecha. What greater mitzvah of V'samachta b'chagecha is there than sleeping? So why was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah torturing himself, talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim? First of all, it's not a mitzvah, and if he wants to do a mitzvah, let him go to sleep. Simchas Yom Tif, the Abarbanel says. Look at number 6. Look at number 6. The Abarbanel in his Haggadah Zevach Pesach, he says Shiur Gimel. B'mash zachar mechachmei Yisrael shem mesafim Yitzias Mitzrayim kol ois halayla ki ma'ra kacha. Why were they torturing themselves? One thing I know the Torah commands is you have to enjoy the Yom Tov. Nowhere does the Torah say you have to speak about Yetzias Mitzrayim the whole night. Right? Rabbi Barbanel is asking, even according to the other Tanoim, that the mitzvah is the whole night. There's also a mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov. Why were they talking the whole night? Were they torturing themselves? They must have had a very grandiose purpose in speaking about Yetzias Mitzrayim the whole night. By the way, I'll just point out, the Stipler says, and others say the following. Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that the mitzvah of Korban Pesach is Kol Halayla. Now, where was the Seder taking place? Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak is Mekayma Shel Rabbi Akiva. So in deference to Rabbi Akiva, who is the Rav of the city, even Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, who was his Rebbe, in deference to Rabbi Akiva, was following the Shita of Rabbi Akiva, even though his personal Shita was only Ad Chatzos, but Rabbi Akiva's Shita was Kol Halayla, and Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah was in respect, in deference to his Talmud Rabbi Akiva, he was speaking the whole night. But still, why was Rabbi Akiva doing it? Again, there's a mitzvah of a samach. Okay. Let's take a look at number 7. As an introduction to Hallel, we say the following. We say, V'ne'emar lefanav shira chadasha halaluka. Raise your hand if you say that in the Haggadah. We don't say v'ne'emar. We say v'noimar. But the Magen Avram says that what we do is wrong. The Magen Avram says v'ne'emar. What does v'ne'emar mean?
It says.
V'ne'emar means and it was said, and we said in the past, right? Ne'emar is we will say. The vav hamis hapeches changes it to the past. V'ne'emar lefanav, and it was said before you when we left Mitzrayim, Ashira Chadasha, right? What's going on in Gulas Mitzrayim? What did Klal Yisrael sing when they left Mitzrayim? They said Hallel. Right? The Gemara in Erechem says they said Hallel. So therefore, the correct nusach, says the Magen Avram, is V'ne'emar lefanav. Not we will, but we did. However, if you look in most Haggados, and I don't believe there are too many people that say this nusach, we say V'noimar lefanav. Take a look in.
V'noimar could be the present. We should be able to see ourselves as if we exited from Egypt now.
Okay. V'noimar lefanav shira chadasha, right? We're saying, and we will say before you shira chadasha halaluka. The Magen Avram says, this is not about what we're about to do. This is about what we did. We're recalling what we did. Hold on to your thought. But simply put, the Magen Avram says, V'noimar lefanav, we're introducing, the Magen Avram is saying, we're saying over what they did in Mitzrayim. When Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, what did they do? They said Hallel, and therefore the correct nusach should be, V'ne'emar lefanav, and they said before you. Okay.
So, just a question, what you said before, so basically you were saying the secret Yetzias Mitzrayim one night because it was in the city of Rabbi Akiva, now the Baal HaGoda, and the fact that we continue after Chatzos, when we say Hallel, it's not just it's not because we're doing the secret Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's just shvachos to HaKadosh Baruch.
We haven't really answered that yet. I just threw out a possible suggestion. We haven't gotten to the answer that we're going to get to. I just threw out that the Stipler says that the reason why Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah did it is because, in deference to Rabbi Akiva, who is the Maradaser of the Makkah, this was his city, Bnei Brak. And in deference to him.
Today we don't necessarily, you don't have to, you can, after Chatzos, there's still a mitzvah separate Yetzias Mitzrayim or not,
we still haven't explained it. We haven't gotten to that. Yeah. Okay. Rabbi Say, why do we eat matzah? So you get to the beginning of the Haggadah, it says, we point to that. This is the poor man's bread that we ate in Egypt, right? In Egypt, we didn't have enough money for the yeast. The masters, they wanted us to eat the matzah. It stays in the digestive system for a long time. This way they wouldn't have to feed us so much. That's what it says in the beginning of the Haggadah. We eat matzah. Why? We're commemorating how miserable things were in Egypt. They didn't even have bread that you could chew. They had to eat this thing, right? That it tastes like cardboard. This is what they ate in Mitzrayim. What? Yeah, right. Is that what? I have a question for you. But at the end of the Haggadah, we give a completely different reason why we eat matzah. At the end of the Haggadah, we say, Matzah zu al shema, mishum shalai hisbuk, right? Tzekom, l'tzekes, ad shenigla aleim, melech malchei amlechem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know why we eat matzah? Because the night we were leaving Mitzrayim, we were baking bread, and we wanted to put in the yeast, and we wanted it to rise, and then we had a scram, and we didn't have time to rise. So it's a stira. Well, maybe because we drank so much wine, the Baal Haggadah thinks that we're not going to remember what we said in the beginning of the Haggadah. Right? In the beginning of the Haggadah, that's the real reason. But then after you drink a little, we could give you a different reason, and no one will know the difference, right? What? In the beginning, there's a difference. In the beginning of the Haggadah, we say, this is the most obvious question on the Haggadah. Beginning of the Haggadah, we say, the reason we eat matzah is is what we ate in Egypt for 210 years. And the end of the Haggadah, we say, right, if you don't say the following on Pesach, you're not Yoitza. 1 second. If anyone's thinking, that's why the kids all go to sleep. Nobody's going to ask any questions. And now we say, if you don't say the following, you're not Yoitze. But 1 second, we said in the beginning of the Haggadah, the reason for the matzah is because this is what we ate in Mitzrayim. And now we're saying, the reason for the matzah, and if you don't say this, you might as well go home and stop right now because you're not Yoitze the mitzvah, is because we didn't have chance, the night we were leaving, to let it rise. So what's the reason then?
The second teretz is not so good anyway because you don't have enough time. Because it seems like the mitzvah, Hashem commanded the Bnei Yisrael to eat matzah before they went out, before it ever happened.
Okay.
That's also, it's a little bit weak to say that. That's the time given usually, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because why is the mitzvah given before?
It's true. The Bnei Yisrael had to eat matzah in Mitzrayim even before they left quickly. Maybe we'll discuss that one time, but not.
Because they ate 200 years.
So what are we saying in the beginning of the Haggadah? This is the poor man's bread, right? Like the Ibn Ezra and other Rishonim bring down that they say testimony in the jails, right? What do they feed the inmates? You don't give them bread. Bread, you eat bread, you're hungry in an hour. You eat matzah, you're not hungry for 2 weeks, right? It stays in you. It fills you up. Okay.
What's your proof?
It's the cheapest thing too.
Okay. Another point.
Not anymore, yeah.
Now the 22,000.
What, 22? Look at 30.
It's the poor man's bread. Once you buy it, right? You come home. Yeah. Okay.
25 to 30, not 22.
Okay.
It goes for every year. It goes up.
Baruch Hashem. Okay. Another question. We know that on Shvi Shel Pesach, you don't say Halal Shalem. Right?
Yes.
Why?
Because of Mitzrayim.
Because everybody knows the reason that the Gemara doesn't say. Right? The Gemara doesn't say that reason. The Beis Yosef says that reason, and that's not the reason the Gemara gives. But anyway, we'll go with that reason today. But the Beis Yosef says, what's the reason why we don't say Halal Shalem on the last day of Pesach? Why? The Mitzrayim are drowning, right? The Egyptians are being torn apart, limb by limb in the Yam, and you're going to sing? So what does that have to? So why don't we say Halal Shalem on Chol Hamoed? So the Rishonim say you're going to say Halal on Chol Hamoed and not say Halal on the 7th day of Yom Tov. How's it going to look? So once you're not saying Halal Shalem on the last day of Yom Tov, you're not going to say Halal Shalem on Chol Hamoed. Question: do we say Halal Shalem on the first day of Pesach?
Yes.
What about the fact that all the Egyptian firstborn are dropping dead like flies? That's okay. That's not a problem. The fact that, half the population is dying, you could sing your heart out. But the last day of Pesach, right? The last day of Pesach, because a couple of Egyptians came into the sea, all of a sudden you can't say Halal. What's the difference? Right? It says, Ein bayish asher ein shames. Right? And Chazal say that in one house they had many, many Egyptians that died. Why? Because this one was the firstborn of that father, and this one was the firstborn of that father. Nobody knew whose father it was, right? So, if the reason why we don't say Halal on the last day of Pesach is because why do we say Halal on the first day of Pesach? It is also raised by Rabbi Warman in number 10. Take a look. Ayin Baruchayin v'simen Tov Tzadi de b'chol hamoed u'v'shnei yomim ha'achronim shel Pesach koirim Hallel bedilog. We say Hallel bedilog. Right? We don't say the whole Hallel. What's the reason? By the way, remember, the reason the Gemara gives is because you bring the same karbanos every day. It's not different. On Sukkos, every day you bring different karbanos. So you could say a Hallel Shalem. But the reason the Gemara gives, but Pesach, it's the same karbanos every day. It doesn't call for Hallel Shalem. So remembering now that the Chidush Yeshuas Yaakov says, you need both reasons. You need the reason of the Gemara, and you need the reason of the Beis Yosef. Because there are two causes for Hallel. One is the Yom Tif, and one is the miracle. So out the Yom Tif, we don't say Hallel Shalem. Why? Because you bring the same karbanos every day. What about out the Nes? You should say Hallel. For that, we have the reason of the Beis Yosef that B'nefalei Vecha Al Tisma.
I don't understand. On Pesach, it's more on Nes than on Sukkot. Over here, you have people trying because everything. Sukkot, what do you have? Because on an Kavod, this is on a Nes.
Okay, on Sukkot, the Hallel is for the Yom Tif also, because on a Yom Tif you say Hallel.
So why not say by Pesach then?
Well, Hallel Shalem?
Yeah.
Also for the Yom Tif. So that the Gemara gives a reason. Since you bring the same carbon every day, it's in a way it's one long Yom Tif. You don't say each day is an independent Yom Tif.
So why not the first 2 days then?
What?
Why not the first 2 days say Chatzi Hallel?
That's the first time you bring the carbon.
What do you mean?
By Pesach.
We do say Hallel Shalom the first 2
No,
days.
not Shalom. Chatzi, if you're going to say the whole rest of the holiday, say the first 2 days there.
No. Once you say Hallel Shalom, so that covers the rest of the Yom. You have to say once Hallel Shalom for Yom
You say it depends on the Korbanot. If you're going to be the same Korbanot from day 1 to day 8,
yeah.
say half a Hallel, the whole day, 8 days also.
No. For Yom Tif, you need to say one Hallel, a Hallel Shalom.
If you're saying the first 2 days, Shalom, say the rest of the holiday on Pesach.
The Hallel, once you say Hallel for Yom Tif, so now you're covered for Yom Tif. So you say a Hallel Shalom, and the other days you say Chatzi Hallel.
But you say it depends on the Korbanot.
In other words, since it's the same karbanos every day, it's considered one long Yom Tif. So therefore, once you say Hallel Shalom on the first day, that covers the rest of Yom Tif, and the other days.
Right. The first time you have it.
That's the reason the Gemara. I don't want to get into that, but let's take a look at number 10. Why don't we say Hallel Shalom on Pesach? Uve Beis Yosef Hevi Mimasha Kasav B'Shubalei Haleket. The Beis Yosef brings down from the Shubalei Haleket the B'Shvi Shal Pesach Nitbu HaMitzrayim B'Yam. Right? On the 7th day of Pesach they drowned. Uksiv B'Nefal Oyevecha Al Tismach. Don't rejoice when your enemy falls. V'ayin B'Taz Sham Sivkat and Gimel the Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Masa Yadai Toivim B'Yam B'Atam Oimim Shira. So why don't we say Hallel on Chalamayid? The kivan to be Yom Hashvi ain't gomer misa Hallel. Since on the 7th day we don't finish Hallel. Gam Chalamayid ain't gomer oisay shelo yeh Chalamayid adif miyam tef achron. Why don't we say Hallel on Chalamayid? Because since we're not saying Hallel on the last days, we don't want Chalamayid to be more chamer than Yom Tov. Okay, so skip a kol l'chara temua. Do fizeich gomer misa Hallel b'yom harishonim shel Pesach. Why then would we be gomer Hallel on the first day of Pesach? B'shas Yetzias Mitzrayim, Meisu B'Chari Mitzrayim, Munafali B'Chal Tismach. Why would you say Hallel the first day of Pesach? Okay.
You don't give answers, only questions.
In this question, we just ask questions.
It's Pesach as well. So one question.
Next week will be
Get the answers off the phone.
Okay. And finally, the beginning of the Haggadah. See, this question, though, you can't give the excuse you already drank, because you only had 1 cup of wine for this one. The beginning of the Haggadah, we say, Kol Ditzrich Yesei V'Yifsach. Anybody who needs, come. Join us in the Karban Pesach. I don't know about you, but I don't bring a Karban Pesach at my house. So who exactly are we inviting to partake of the Karban Pesach? Zecher. What's the Zecher?
You have the Torah, you have the Zecher.
The Halach Ma'anya, they were Masakin after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So, what are we saying? I mean, I understand you want to say, let's remember the Karban Pesach, but we're inviting people to eat from our Karban Pesach?
That's better. Why are you inviting right at the Seder? Don't you invite them a week before?
That's another question. That's a good question. It's a good question. What?
You're inviting the Beso, not the people on the outside.
In your house, do they take a sheep and slaughter it the night of Pesach?
No.
So who are you inviting to eat from your current Pesach? Kol ditzrich yesei v'yivsach. Look at, there's a question raised in
Only say.
What?
You only say.
You just say it. I understand kol dichvin yesei. Anyone who's hungry could come and eat. But what's called ditzrich yesei v'yivsach?
Another, you can ask another question. By Carbon Pesach, you had to register before with the food. You couldn't just drop in. So that's
okay, also a good question. But I don't have an answer to that one. So the rule is you can only ask questions they have an answer to, right? Okay. Look at number 11. Shazeh yesei v'yivsach, right? The Rishon says, I'm not so funny. Shazeh yesei v'yivsach medaber al achilas Pesach. One of the Rishonim on the Haggadah, we don't know who it is. He's a Perish Kadmon. It's one of the Rishonim. He says when we say Yesei v'Yivsach, it's referring to the Karban Pesach. Even though nowadays Karban Pesach does not apply. So you listen to how he tries to squeeze out of this one. We still mention it. Sheroyin atzmeinu ki'ilu anu negalin miyad liyad, because we're imagining ourselves as if the Geula has already come, as if Mashiach has already come. Benasa benekayim mitzvahs achilas Pesach. Okay? In other words, the answer to the question is, why are we inviting people to the Karban Pesach? We don't have a Karban Pesach. We just have that, that shank bone on the plate, right? That why would anyone want to eat anyway? But that's all. The answer is, in our minds, we're so ready for the Geula. Our hearts are so inflamed, and we have so much emunah the night of Pesach. It's as if Mashiach has come, and it's as if we're bringing the Karban Pesach, and it's as if we're inviting everyone to join us. And therefore, what are the very next words? Hashat hacha l'shana haba ba'arad Yisrael. That's what we say, right? After we invite everyone to the Karban Pesach, Hashat hacha, this year here, l'shana haba ba'arad Yisrael. That's how this Perish Kadmon squeezes out of the question, and we're going to try to offer perhaps another answer. So let's just review the questions. Number 1, question number is, we asked, what happened to the bracha of Sha'asa Nisim? Well, the Torah said it's covered in Asher Ga'alanu, which we asked we should make the Asher Ga'alanu in the beginning of the Seder. Question number 2, we wanted to know, why don't we make a bracha on the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the Shibad HaLeket says we do Asher Ga'alanu, and to which we asked, so we should make the bracha before. Question number 3, we wanted to know why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, whose personal opinion is what? That the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is only until Chatzos. What's he doing continuing to talk about it Kol HaLayla? Number 4, we wanted to know why we don't agree with the correction of the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram says we should say V'nemar lefanav. In other words, this is what they said when they left Mitzrayim. But we don't do that. We say V'nemar lefanav. This is what we're saying to you. Number 5, we wanted to...
Stop at 4. It's 4 kasha.
I hear. We had another question, right? There's a contradiction. In the beginning of the Haggadah, we say the reason for matzah is this is the poor man's bread we ate in Mitzrayim. The end of the Haggadah, we say this commemorates that the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, we didn't have time for the bread to rise. Number 6, we wanted to know, how could you say Hallel Shalom, the first day of Pesach, if that's when the Mitzrayim, the firstborn, died? And number 7, what in the world are we saying? Kol ditzrich yesei v'yivsach. We're not offering a Karban Pesach anymore. Okay. At the end of the Haggadah, we make the following statement: B'chol dar v'dar chayev adam l'rois es atzmai ki'ilu hu yatsa mi'Mitzrayim. In every generation, a person is obligated to imagine himself as if he left Mitzrayim. Shenemar, v'higad tal ben chabayemahu leimar. You should tell your son on that day, saying, Ba'avor zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeisi mi'Mitzrayim. Because of this, Hashem did for me. Not for our,
great grandparents.
To Zaida and Baba 1,000 years. He did this for me. He didn't just redeem our forefathers. He took us out. To bring us. So we have a very interesting obligation the night of Pesach. We have to imagine not that Hashem took out our ancestors, but Hashem took us out. Why? Hashem didn't take us out. He took out our ancestors. Did anybody ever hear that on Purim? Chayev Adam Loimar. Chayev Adam Liroy Sasatzma Ki Ilu Hu Nitzal Me Haman. Is there such an obligation that you have to imagine yourself as if Haman wanted to kill you on the 13th of Adar and Baruch Hashem, Hashem saved you? There's no such shiur. Is anybody on Chanukah, a person has to imagine himself, I have to imagine myself as if Antiochus didn't let me put on tefillin and keep Shabbos and keep Rosh Chodesh. Baruch Hashem, Hashem saved me. I have to imagine myself as if I'm sitting under the Ananei HaKavod and there's no such chiyuv. No. We thank Hashem that He did these miracles for our ancestors. And yet when it comes to Pesach, it's not enough to remember what Hashem did to our ancestors. We have to imagine as if Hashem did it to us.
Because Pesach is different. Pesach is the beginning of the beginning. Pesach is the beginning of becoming as a Jewish nation. That was the first step to all other things that you mentioned later. If it wouldn't be so, then that's why Pesach is outstanding.
Okay. But we weren't there. Why should we imagine something that didn't happen? Look, if Haman would have been successful in killing our ancestors, we wouldn't be here today. And yet we're not obligated to think as if Haman wanted to kill us. Chazal understand, reality is reality. This is something Hashem did for our ancestors. So what is this? And the Rambam takes it further. The nusach of the Rambam is more than a person is obligated to imagine himself as if he left Mitzrayim. Look at number 13. Says the Rambam, B'chol dar v'dar chayiv adam leharois es atzma kilu ba'atzma yatsa ata mishibur Mitzrayim. Says the Rambam, in every generation, a person is obligated leharois to show right? So not now, we're not just dealing with what you have to think in your mind. You have to act, right? Some people, they take the sack, they carry it over their shoulders. Why? Because the Rambam says it's not enough to think that you're leaving Mitzrayim. You have to act as if you're leaving Mitzrayim. Says the Rambam, Ata, now. Shenemar v'oisanu hoitzi misham. Says the Maggid Mishnah, the Rambam is not inventing this. This was the nusach of the Rambam in the Mishnah and Psachim. According to the Rambam, the Mishnah and Psachim says, Chayiv Adam leharois es atzmai. B'chol dar v'dar, number 14, the Maggid Mishnah says, B'chol dar v'dar Chayiv Adam, Gam zeh b'Mishnah sham, B'chol dar v'dar Chayiv Adam leharois es atzmai kilu yatzmi mitzvah. Says the Abar Benel an amazing idea. He says like this. The night of Pesach, you have a mitzvah to talk about the events of us leaving Mitzrayim. But there's a completely separate obligation, and that is, besides relaying the facts and the story, you have to imagine and you have to act as if you're leaving right now. And when Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, they were traveling the entire night. They didn't have time to sleep. They didn't have time to close their eyes. They were traveling the entire night. And therefore, says the Abar Benel, you know why Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, you know why Rabbi Akiva, you know why Rav Tarfon, they were talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim the whole night? It has nothing to do with the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's a different mitzvah. It's the mitzvah of imagining and acting as if you're leaving Mitzrayim now. Now, how are you supposed to do that? How do you imagine? What are you supposed to do? Put on those sandals with the straps and, what do you do? Put on a play? The only way to relive it is you talk about it. You recall, you describe in detail. So the reason why these Chachamim were staying up the whole night and depriving themselves of sleep, there was no mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. It was a different mitzvah. It was a mitzvah of we are obligated to imagine ourselves as if we're leaving Mitzrayim. Says that Abar Benel, number 15. Hinehu. This night is the night that Hashem has guarded Yisrael. The night that Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, they didn't sleep. What were they doing? The first part of the night, the first part of the night, what were they doing? They were being Isaac in the mitzvahs of Pesach and Matzah and Marah. What were they doing the second part of the night? And the second part, they were going out. That night that they left Mitzrayim, they couldn't sleep. There was no time. The first half, they were being osik in the mitzvahs. The second half, they were leaving. Since there's an obligation to imagine yourself as if you're leaving Mitzrayim, and not just to imagine yourself, to display, to act, to reenact. Therefore, these Kedoshim, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rav Tarfon, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shua, they wanted to emulate what our forefathers did in its fullest sense. Matzah, the mitzvah of matzah is over. Karban Pesach is over. Marar is over. Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim is over. Haggadah is over. But there's a separate mitzvah. The mitzvah of Chayiv Adam Laharos Es Atzmai.
The Haggadah they said, שהיו עסוקים בסיפור יציאת מצרים כל אותו הלילה.
Asukim, B'Yitzias Mitzrayim. So look what he says. Shemiyad b'tchilas halayla. What were they doing in the beginning of the night? Hisasku b'mitzvahs hamatzah v'hamara v'zecha ha'pesach k'may she'asa b'sem b'mitzrayim v'achakach kol shar halayla hayu misapram b'yitziyah. Why? Uvezeh heru atzmam ki'ilu heim yatzu. By doing this, they show themselves as if they were leaving. Okay? And Rabbi Olbaum, in his Haggadah, Minchas Chayin, and many others point out that what you see from this Abar Benel is the concept that there are two independent mitzvahs. There's one mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, and the parameters and the guidelines of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim are governed by the laws of Matzah, Marar, and Karban Pesach. But there's a completely independent mitzvah of imagining and thinking that you yourself are leaving, and that mitzvah is not governed by the mitzvah of matzah. That mitzvah is to try to reenact in the way that Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim. Rabbi Olbaum in his Haggadah, he points out a very nice diuk. He says, "Hayu misaprim b'yitzias Mitzrayim kol oisai halayla." That very night. What do you mean that very night? I mean, whatever night they were doing it, it was obviously that night and not a different night, right? You can't. Whatever you're doing, it's that time and not a different time. Right? The word oisa is completely extra. It's like kol halayla. That night. Well, I might think they were saying it, but really they were doing it at a different time. I mean, what is that supposed to mean? Kol oisai halayla means, in their minds, it was that very night that they left Mitzrayim. Because that's what they were trying to fulfill. They weren't fulfilling the mitzvah of Sipur. They were Mesaper, he says, Kol oisai halayla. In their minds, that night that they were sitting in Bnei Brak, it was as if they were leaving Mitzrayim. Okay. Comes the Chassam Sofer, he says, a davar nifla. He comes, he says like this. Why is there no bracha on Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? So we said there is. Ga'al Yisrael. Asher Ga'alanu. We had a question. We should make the bracha over Lasiyasam before we do the mitzvah. There is one mitzvah that you can't make the bracha before the mitzvah. You have to make the bracha after the mitzvah. When you become a ger. When a ger is toivel, when does he make the bracha ala tefillah? After. Why after?
He's not a good. He's a good person.
He's not a Jewish. He can't make a bracha. So in that situation, we can't allow him to make the bracha before he goes to the mikvah. What does he do? First he has to go to the mikvah. Now he's a Jew. No. Now he can make the bracha. Says Chassam Sofer. If the night of what? Okay, but there it's also, it is over Lasiyasan because you don't derive benefit from it until after the bracha, right? Okay. And Sfardim make it before?
What?
Like Nashul Shabbos? Or no?
There's some say over Lasiyatan.
Some say, right? Some Sfardim do before. Okay. Says the Chassam Sofer, if there is an obligation to imagine yourself as if you left Mitzrayim, that means the whole night of Pesach, you have to relive the experience, which means Mitchila Oivdei Avodah Zarah Hayu Avosenu. When you come to the Seder, the night of Pesach, what are you? You're a Shegetz. You're an Oived Avodah Zarah. You're an Oived Avodah Zarah, right? You're in Mitzrayim. You're on Memtesh Sharei Tumah. You're together with Terach in his idol business, right? Right? When you ask Terach, how's business? He said, thank God, right? So you're together with Terach. You're not a Jew. You're not a Jew. You're like a guy. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a bracha? You can't make a bracha. You're still in Mitzrayim. You're still in the Mem Teshar Tumah. When it comes to the night of Mitzrayim, it's not just remembering the experience, it's reliving the experience. And that doesn't just mean you relive walking out, it's not just, okay, let me relive the experience, I'm standing on the end of Mitzrayim and let me just take a foot out. No, you have to relive the entire experience. Maschil begnus Mitzrayim mishvach. You have to imagine as if you're in Mitzrayim, Mem Teshar Tumah, right? Halalu oivdei avodah zarah, v'halalu oivdei avodah zarah, mitchila oivdei avodah zarah. You're together with Terach, you're together with Nachar. V'achshav kervanu hamakam la'avodah. Tonight, the night of Pesach is when Hashem is makarev you. So when do you make the bracha, says the Chassam Sofer? After the miracle, after you relive and you remember how you were mitchila oivdei avodah zarah, and Hashem dragged you out of the Mem Teshar Tumah and brought you close to His avodah by giving you the Pesach, by giving you all the mitzvahs hayom. Now that Hashem redeemed you, now you can make the bracha.
Kiddush is right in the beginning of the Seder.
Kiddush? That's a good question. It's a good. That's what the Chassam Sofer says. In fact, the Chassam Sofer says, what other night of the year do we take the matzah, we take the bread, and break it? Anyone make a bracha? Netilas yadayim? Anyone here, make a bracha? Hamoitzi? No brachas. No brachas. Mamish mitchila oivdei avodah zarah hayavasinu. Says the Chassam Sofer. Look what he says. V'yesh loimer. T'isa beperek arvei psachim maschel begnus u'mesan. Number 17. U'mesayim b'shvach. Avodim hayinu mitchila oivdei avodah zarah hayavasinu. V'hinei kemoi shechayiv adam lirois es atzmai ki'ilu yatzim mitzrayim. Just like a person is obligated as if he left Mitzrayim, k'moi kein chayiv adam lirois atzmai ki'ilu haya me'oivdei avodah zarah. You have to imagine yourself as if you're an idolater. V'achshav kervanu hamakim la'avodah. It's tonight that Hashem has drawn you close to His avodah. V'hayom, and this day, b'layla hiskal lavod Hashem mitchila b'mitzvahs hanogas osalai. In other words, when you're mekayim the mitzvahs hayom, matzah, right? You ever realize why are we mekayim the mitzvah of Haggadah before matzah? Why do we relate all the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim before matzah, before mar, before all the mitzvahs hayom? Because until we get out of there, we're not obligated in mitzvahs. It's only after we've relived the experience that Hashem has taken us out of Mitzrayim, only then we do the mitzvahs. Before we leave, we're still like avodah zarah. We're not capable of fulfilling mitzvahs.
I have a test for this kasha about why we make Kiddush.
Yeah.
Until we make Kiddush, we Yidden. As soon as we make Kiddush, we become avodah zarah. Because you're not Yom Tov.
Oh, you mean until then it's not Pesach?
Now it's not Pesach. All of a sudden become avodah zarah.
You need to activate Pesach, right? You need to activate your Mekadosh. Oh, now it's Pesach. Yeah. Now comes.
Why do we have to think that we were such barbaric, lawless people?
Okay.
Because Moshe recognized the fellow was beating up the other fellow was a Jew because of his clothing, because of his nature. So they were keeping Judaism. So why all of a sudden now we're thinking they were barbaric, lawless people? And
I'm not saying barbaric, but we're not.
But we're saying that.
So let's see. Let's see. What's this whole concept?
We're not considering them to be a Jew.
What's the whole concept of imagining that we left Mitzrayim in the first place? What do you mean imagining? When do we ever have imagine something that didn't happen? Well, let's see. What does that concept mean? Why should we imagine such a thing like that? And like you're saying, why imagine?
Our religion is based on that.
No, we're recalling reality.
We have not seen Hashem. We believe that He exists. That's imagine.
No, Hashem revealed Himself on Har Sinai, and we're recalling.
We're not there.
Okay, but at least we're recalling something that happened. Here, Hashem wants us to imagine that we were there by Ananei HaKavod. Hashem never asked us, imagine as if you're sitting under Ananei HaKavod. Hashem says, remember what I did for your forefathers. Here Hashem says, even though you weren't there, I want you to imagine as if you were there. Okay, what's that whole concept? Let's finish the words of Chassam Sofer. V'hinei matzinu b'tfilas gerim. We find by the tefillah of gerim shemavarchin la'achar tefillah, that they make the bracha after the tefillah. Mipnei shekoidem tefillah eino yachal lomar v'tzivanu. The Gemara Pesachim says before their taival you can't say v'tzivanu. Hachanami koidem sipur yitzias Mitzrayim eino yachal lomar v'tzivanu. Before we relate the events of Mitzrayim, we can't say v'tzivanu. It's as if we're still on the level of idolaters. And after we relate the events, okay. This is what the author of the Haggadah means. This is how we ate bread in Mitzrayim. In other words, you want to see what kind of goyim we were in Mitzrayim? Break the bread, no bracha. That's what we mean. This is how we ate bread in Mitzrayim. Ha lachma anya diachal. It says Chassam Sofer. Da'anu parsim matzah shlema koydem sifri tzim tzim beli berchas hamoitzi mashein anu oisin came b'shayim matzah shana. Tell me any other day of the year that we break bread without making a bracha. We're saying this is the way we ate it in Mitzrayim. Shegam zeh moira b'chinas hanal shanu royim atzmenu ki'ilu hayinu achshav goyim lekachanu parsim matzah beli bracha. So perhaps we could say the following: there's no contradiction in the Haggadah, right? We had a question in the beginning of the Haggadah. We say, why are we eating matzah? Because this is what we ate for 210 years. At the end of the Haggadah, we say, why are we eating matzah? Because when Hashem redeemed us, we didn't have time for the bread to rise. The answer is the night of Mitzrayim, we are leaving Egypt. At the beginning of the Haggadah, where are we in Egypt? We're still there. Right? We're Avadim. So what's this matzah doing on our table? You're going to tell me a Maisa because Hashem redeemed us? We're redeeming. We're here. We're slaves in Egypt. We're building the pyramids where they're whipping us, they're taking away our children, they're throwing it into the... So why do we have matzah on the table? We have a kasha. You're going to tell me Baba Maisa that Hashem redeemed us? I'm sitting here in Mitzrayim, right, in Queens. Right now, I'm not in Queens. I'm in Mitzrayim, I'm in Eved, I'm Be'inoi, I'm in Ovid Avodah Zarah. What's this matzah doing on my table? This matzah. This is the poor man's bread that we've been eating for the 210 years. But at the end of the Haggadah, Hashem's redeemed us. So what are we still eating the poor man's bread for? Why are we eating this bread? The answer is, now there's a new story. Now that we're redeemed, we have a mitzvah to eat matzah because this bread, Hashem did not give us the opportunity to rise as we're leaving. In other words, it's not a contradiction. It depends where you are. The beginning of the Seder, you're an Eved in Mitzrayim, you're an Ovid Avodah Zarah. So what are you eating matzah for? You're going to tell me something, Hashem redeemed you? Hashem didn't redeem you yet. That's because this is the poor man's bread, we're reliving the experience. At the end of the Haggadah, we're free. So what do? We're eating matzah it's better, right? A prisoner, right? For his first meal, he's going to take out the airplane meal that they gave him in prison to eat? Of course not. Right? What? You're a free man. You go to a good restaurant. So we're free. Why are we eating that matzah? This is a different matzah. This is the matzah that helps us remember that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim.
Where it says, where is this teretz? Which number?
This teretz didn't make it onto the sheet. This is what we're suggesting.
The point of the
yeah. Well, which one?
The one that you said.
This? This is what I like to suggest. Yeah.
You could also say that, like, why when you're breaking the matzah, you don't make a bracha, no brachas, you wait till the end toward the end, so that the tinoik, the children should answer, what are you doing? Some of these questions you can answer with that too, to arouse their curiosity.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Regarding the following issue, the Magen Avram says that when you're about to say Hallel, you should say V'namar lefanav. This is what Bnei Yisrael they said before you, but we don't do that. What do we say? V'noimar lefanav. We are saying before you. Why? What do you mean we? This is not what we said. This is what they said. No. We're leaving Mitzrayim right now. Right now we're leaving Mitzrayim. Right? Tonight. And we are saying, Hallel. What are we going to say? They said, who's they? Who's the they? Nobody ever left before. This is a night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. This is the first time we are reliving the experience. And Hashem, as you're taking us out tonight, you know what we're about to do? Shira Chadasha. This is a new Shira. So the Netziv, the Aruch HaShulchan asks, what do you mean Shira Chadasha? How could we call Hallel Shira Chadasha? What do you mean? That's what Bnei Yisrael sang 3,000 years ago. How could we we're saying, we're about to sing a new song? What's new about it? No, this is the first time we're ever singing it. It's as if we're leaving Mitzrayim tonight, and we're being Mechadesh Hallel. Mechadesh. They did it 3,000, no, there's no 3,000 years ago. The night of Pesach is not a Zecher. There's no Zecher. This is the experience itself.
What's Magen Avraham do with that? He's not learning this way. This is the side part. This is what the Talmudim comes.
Yeah.
If we say Hallel Shalem the first day, and we are not such Jews, such madriga of the high madriga of the Jews, and by the end we became really high madriga. So we should say double Hallel at the end.
Okay. So again, back to the question: why do we say Hallel Shalom the first day of Pesach? I thought the Mitzrayim, their firstborn were being killed. So Maaseh Yadai tell them the same way.
We're talking about us.
I have a question for you. Why don't we say Hallel the last day of Pesach? Because b'nafal oivecha al tismach. You can't rejoice when your enemies have a downfall, right? I have a question for you. What about the Bnei Yisrael when they crossed the Yam? What did they do? They sang Oz Yashir. What happened to the concept? Maaseh Yadai Tovim B'Yam V'Atamayim Shira? The answer is that applies to other people. But to the ones who the miracle is happening to right now, we don't say you're not allowed to sing. Of course you're allowed to sing. Right? Of course. Hashem said to the Malachim, how could you sing Shira when the Mitzrayim are drowning? But Hashem didn't say to Bnei Yisrael, how could you sing Shira when the Mitzrayim are drowning? Because when your life is being saved right now, you sing you have to say Shira. And therefore, the first day of Pesach, Rabbi Warman suggests, first day of Pesach, we're not recalling what happened to our ancestors. We ourselves are leaving Mitzrayim. So what do you want to say? The Egyptian firstborn are dying. So what? This is our miracle. Our lives are being saved right now. And that's why we could say Hallel Shalom. That's what Rabbi Warman suggests.
In the last days, we're already Jews and already, so it's not.
That's why, by the way, in Nosach Sfard, we say the following. In Nosach Sfard, we say, Mi Mitzrayim ge'alta nu. Or mi beis avodim pedisanu. God, you took us out of Mitzrayim. You took us out. But the Yamsuf, lahem bakata. The Yamsuf, you did it for them. That was when there's no obligation the seventh day of Pesach to imagine as if you're walking through Kilu Hashem split the sea. Hashem split the sea for them. We're grateful. But when it comes to Mitzrayim, Mi Mitzrayim Ga'al Tanu, He redeemed us. Okay. Let us end with the following. Why would Hashem obligate us to imagine something that never happened? Raise your hand if you were in Mitzrayim, right? Nobody here was in Mitzrayim. Nobody here was saved from Mitzrayim. Nobody here was enslaved in Mitzrayim, and no one here was taken out of Mitzrayim. So why would Hashem, what?
Maybe our neshamas?
Maybe, I don't know. What? So what is it?
Sinai, no?
Yeah. But we don't necessarily find that our neshamas were in Mitzrayim.
But if we were in Sinai, then there's a possibility that all our neshamas was in Mitzrayim also.
I mean, even if we were there, we weren't working there. Right? Our neshamas were also building pyramids. I mean, okay. Says one of the classic svarim of Lamdas, right? The K'tzais HaChoshen and the Nesivas HaMishpat, right? The classic svarim of Lamdas. The K'tzais and the Nesivas. The Nesivas, Rabbi Yaakov Loberbaum, wrote one of the classic commentaries on the Haggadah, and he says he has the following question. What do we do first? Marar or matzah?
Maror.
What do we eat first?
Oh, the matzah, the maror.
Matzah and the maror. Now, he has an obvious question. Matzah commemorates freedom. The maror commemorates the bitterness. So we're flipping around the whole order. Why should we first eat? First we should eat the maror, remember the bitterness. Then we should eat the matzah, remember how Hashem took us out of it. That's the kasha of the Nesivos. Says the Nesivos, he asked the question we've been asking. Why would Hashem obligate us to remember something that never happened? You don't find it by Purim that we have to remember as if Haman wanted to kill us. We don't find it by Hanukkah. So he says like this. Why did Hashem take us out of Mitzrayim? For what purpose?
Kabbalat Torah.
Kabbalat Torah. To get the Torah. Okay, but it was for a purpose, right? It wasn't just to, it was in order to be machnes us, to be His people, right? That we should be His avadim, to keep the mitzvos and learn the Torah. Question. Who was Hashem interested that they should be His avadim and keep the Torah? Those 600,000 Jews? But we're just, we just happen to be born from them? In other words, who was Hashem interested in making them His avadim and giving them His Torah, and that they should be His people? Was it only them, and we're just the beneficiaries? No. Is Hashem less interested that we should be His avadim than that they should be His avadim? No. In other words, when Hashem in His infinite wisdom decided to choose Bnei Yisrael as His people, did He just choose them and we just happen to be their descendants? No. Hashem equally chose every single individual Jew. Right? That's part of our emunah. Hashem, when we say we're the chosen people, Hashem chose them and we just happen to come from them? No. Hashem saw throughout all the generations, He saw Klal Yisrael, and He chose them all. And that's why He took us out of Mitzrayim. So the benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim equally was benefit. We equally gain from the Yetzias Mitzrayim as they did, right? The benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim is what? That we became Hashem's chosen people. So Hashem didn't choose them and we're the beneficiaries. Hashem chose the collective Klal Yisrael. It says in Nesivos, how can we feel and realize and understand that Hashem didn't just choose them, Hashem chose us also? This is what we do. Chayiv Adam Lirois Es Atzma Keilu Hu Yatzim Mitzrayim. Every Jew is obligated to imagine as if he left Mitzrayim. Why? Because the benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim accrues to every Jew equally. What do you mean it doesn't accrue to every Jew equally? They were being tortured and now they have freedom. It says in Nesivos, that's not what we're celebrating the night of Pesach. Right? People think, they tortured us, they whipped us, they hit us, they made us build pyramids, and now we have it easy. That's not the benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim. If that was the benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim, no one would have to imagine themselves as if they were in Mitzrayim, because we weren't in Mitzrayim. The benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim is primarily we became the Am Hashem. So if we became the Am Hashem, that is an equal benefit to all generations throughout history. And therefore we have an obligation to imagine ourselves as if we're in Mitzrayim. Why? Because the benefit of the Yetziah applies equally to every single Jew. It says in Nesivos. Why do we eat the matzah and only then eat the maror? It says in Nesivos very passionate. If we would eat the maror first, you know what most people would think? What was the benefit of leaving Mitzrayim? Things were bitter, and now it's free. Now we're free. If that would be the case, then we're just the beneficiary. We just happen to be born from those people who are freed. No. The benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim was not we left bitterness and now we have freedom. That was secondary. That's a side point. That's, we'll talk about that after. The first thing is matzah. What's matzah? Cheirus olam. That we are the Am Hashem. That applies equally to every generation. By the way, let's not forget about one small little thing. By the way, things were very bad in Mitzrayim. And the situation improved when we left. But that's not the ikar. That's not the main celebration. The main celebration the night of Pesach was we didn't have the opportunity to serve Hashem. We didn't have the mitzvahs. And now Hashem chose us to have the privilege to do the mitzvahs. Which would be, that would come out. Let's say in Mitzrayim we were wealthy, we were rich, we were successful. We would still be celebrating the night of Pesach because the night of Pesach is the Yom Tif that Hashem selected us to be His people. By the way, after we eat the matzah, let's not forget about another benefit Hashem did for us. And that is, things were very bitter in Mitzrayim. Don't forget about the maror. And now things are not so bitter. But the main celebration is Chayiv Adam Liros Es Atzma Keilu Hu Yatzim Mitzrayim, because the benefit of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Let's just take a look very briefly. Look at number 21. You see in the middle of the paragraph, Lachein. See where it says Lachein in big? Lachein nira. Devadayim hoyinu oisim ikar hasimcha haneis mashayatzanu mehamriyo shel shibur hagalos loy hoyinu maskirin atzmeinu b'habracha. If the main benefit of leaving Mitzrayim was that things are not bitter anymore, we would have nothing to do with the celebration. We would not include ourselves. Because we know throughout Shas, what does a person do if he comes to a place where his father was saved, where his forefathers were saved? You say, Sha'asa neis la'avoseinu ba'makom hazeh. Hashem, you made a miracle for our fathers. The night of Pesach, do we say, thank you Hashem for making a miracle for our fathers? You say, thank you Hashem for redeeming us. Because the night of Pesach has nothing, the main concept of Pesach has nothing to do with the bitterness. Bitterness is a side point, it's an added point, it's a throw-on. The main celebration of the night of Pesach is Hashem chose us to be His people. Asher ge'alanu, what does the word ge'ula mean? Al ha-ge'ula v'al ha-tmura. Kinyan means He acquired us, acquisition. We became His people, and He no less acquired us than any other generation. So the simcha of Yetzias Mitzrayim equally applies to every single Jew, and that's why there's a mitzvah, chayiv adam lirois es atzma ki'ilu yatzmi Mitzrayim, and that is why at the beginning of the Pesach, what do we say? Kol ditzrich yesei v'yifsach. Come, tonight we're in Mitzrayim. I could hear the sheep baying in the background. Anybody want to eat from my Karban Pesach? What do you mean Karban Pesach? I don't bring a Karban Pesach. Yeah. Because since the night of Pesach, you have an obligation to imagine yourself as if you're in Mitzrayim. Differently than we said, not you're imagining yourself as if the Geula had already come. You're imagining yourself in Mitzrayim. You're bringing the very first Karban Pesach. It's the Leil HaYetzia. Have a great day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.